what you might not know is this is like the 5th time I've done this. For some reason, I'm nervous. I don't know why. Doing live, I think, is more relaxing for me. Alright, so, hi there, I'm Stuart Smith. I am the owner and operator of Smith Hand-Forged Knives. I've been making knives since 2004. I'm a member of the South African Knife Makers Guild. I'm also chairman of the Southern African Bladesmith Association. This year, if I do really well, I will be joining the ABS ranks as Journeyman Smith. I live in Johannesburg, South Africa, which is where I've lived all my life. First question. You describe your bladesmithing journey as having a slow and perhaps passionless start. Yes, in the early 2000s. Yes. Many years later, perfection. Describe the transition from having a meager interest into knife making and your current level of passion. When I first started making knives in 2004, it was because I really didn't know what else to do. I was a very unsuccessful sales rep, and I was very unhappy with my job. So I thought to myself, what else am I good at? My wife quite wisely and sagely pointed out that I do know how to make knives. So I stopped doing what I did and I started making knives. I wasn't very passionate about it, but I found that over the years, as I entrenched myself and saturated myself in the knife making culture, that I was actually quite good at being around knife people and being with like-minded individuals. And through the social aspect of knife making, I developed my mad passion for knives, and especially when I found knives that I liked to make. So I developed over a long period of time a necessity to make knives, which is what I had to do to make money, to a passion for knives, something that I really loved and I really had to do. And that culminated in me joining the South African Knife Makers Guild, one of the oldest knife making institutions in the world. And once I joined there as a bladesmith, it cemented my name in the South African knife making community. I also do a lot of social media work with Facebook and Instagram and YouTube videos as often as I can, and through that I've exposed myself to a larger world and a larger knife making community. And now I'm internationally known. I wouldn't say renowned, not quite yet, but I'm internationally known. A lot of knife makers and customers and potential knife buyers know who I am. I'm working towards famous. That's where we want to be one day. So people will say, hey, that's Stuart Smith. We got to go and get a photograph with that guy. Kind of like I was when I went to my first blade. I was going to every table saying how's it to everybody. All right, second question. Of all the disciplines needed for knife making, design, forging, grinding, etc., which is your favorite? Which is my least favorite? Okay. My two favorite parts of knife making are forging and handle making. The reason for this is forging is the purity of the knife making. It's the essence. It's pouring my soul into the piece of steel. It's the heating it up and hammering it and smashing those atoms together, with my bare hands, with a hammer and an anvil. And it's all about fire and brimstone and passion, and it's the most exciting part of knife making, especially if you're a bladesmith. I don't know how stock removers do it, where they just get in front of a machine and they just grind. It doesn't feel the same. When you put a piece of steel in the fire and you pull it out and you get that heat on your face, that glow, and you start whacking that steel, bending it to your will, it's an incredible feeling of creation and being able to make something out of nothing. And that's why I really love the forging process, especially if you're making Damascus. Now, I classify Damascus as part of forging because you're taking different materials and you're putting them under an incredible amount of pressure, so much so that they weld themselves together. And you can make something beautiful and exquisite just through the sheer creativity of your mind. So my first passion in knife making is the forging of the blade because it's such a spiritual experience. My second favorite part of knife making is the handle. Once you've got a blade and you've stacked your handle materials and you've done all the filing and the fitting and you've spent the minutes and hours trying to get everything to line up perfectly, then you take all that, once it's been epoxied or pinned together, you take it to the grinder and you take that square piece and you sculpt it. And all you're doing is you're removing everything that isn't handle. It's like a sculptor sculpting out of marble. You're removing all the unnecessary materials. And it takes it from this clunky square thing to this beautiful, sleek, comfortable, well-designed piece of work that is both functional and artistic. And once you finish that last polish and they put that last lap of oil on the handle, your knife is truly born. You've poured your soul and your sweat and your blood into the blade, and you take your creativity and you imbue the handle with beauty. And once that handle, like I said, you've cleaned it off, you remove your covering of the blade and you look at your blade for the first time. It's like unwrapping a Christmas present on Christmas morning. And it's really, really a fantastic feeling, seeing that knife complete, those last touches done on your handle. And because your blade's finished and you forget about it. You wrap it up and you protect it so it doesn't get scratched, whether it's been polished, etched, or out of Damascus. And you don't really look at it until you've finished assembling the handle, and then you take it off. Like I said, it's like a Christmas present. And it's a really satisfying feeling knowing that all those hours and all those days of effort and work have come to a point, and this is the result, this is the reward. You took steel, you took bone, you took micarta, you took paper and wood, and you took and brass and copper, and you took all these things and you smushed them together in this crucible of creation, and you really create something amazing and beautiful. And those are my two favorite parts of knife making. My least favorite part of knife making, there are several things that I don't like doing. Well, I wouldn't say I don't like doing, it's just they're tedious and repetitive, and that's grinding knives. Especially when you're doing reducing grits, you've got to go through your 60 grit, then your 180, then your 240, then 400, then 600, then 800, trying to get rid of all those scratch marks to make hand polishing more bearable. I have done my own hand polishing videos showing people how to polish efficiently, because I'm lazy, I don't like to polish, but if I can take less time to polish, all the better. So I figured out a way using gator belts to take my grind time down to a minimum, where I grind from a 60 grit all the way down to a Gator A30, and from that Gator A30 I hit it with a 400 grit sandpaper, and 25 minutes later, for a hunting style knife, I've got a hand polished blade. And the whole process takes no more than 14 minutes. Whereas I hear my peers complaining about how long it takes to polish knives, and I say, just get a lazy knife maker to do it. He'll figure out a way that's quicker. All right, question 3. Does a forged blade have a soul? I don't think a knife has a soul to start with. It's a lump of steel, a lump of ivory, a lump of bronze, brass, silver, whatever your assortment of materials that you're going to use to make your knife. It doesn't have a soul then. It's just inert matter. It doesn't have a consciousness, it doesn't have blood, it's not a living thing. But I have held knives that once finished and once been created and once been touched by the hands of their creators. I've picked up the knife and it's more than a blade. It's more than the sum of its parts. There's something about the effort and the toil that goes into making a knife that gives a knife character. And that character can be easily described as a soul. So you pick up that knife and you look at it, and for the first time you think, just wow. And that's all you can say. And that wow is the soul of the knife impressing you. So yes, I do think a knife can have a soul, but it's not born with a soul. It has to be given it. 4. Your blades have a particular flow and forms that I've come to regard as quintessential or foundational and refined. Thank you very much. Describe the development of your style and your inspirations. When I started making knives, I went to a course with ABS Mastersmith, Kevin Harvey. And he spoke to me about a variety of knives and designs, and it was all very overwhelming. So when I went away from his course, I was making knives like he was making, because that was the only influence I had for knives at the time. And after many years of emulating my instructor and my teacher, I slowly started exposing myself to the rest of the world of knife making, looking at other knife makers. Lin Ray, which is one of my personal favorites. Mike Quisenberry, oi, I want to go to his workshop and be a fly on that wall. And a variety of other knife makers that I just draw so much inspiration from. And in the beginning, you try and copy them and you want to make what they make because you love what they do. But after a while, just through sheer repetition, I think you develop your own style. You develop your own techniques and you develop your own feel, so that when I look at a knife lineup, without looking at the names on the knives, I can pick out who made those knives. And that's important. As a knife maker, you need to develop a style that's your own, a feel. And I can look at 5 knives and I know exactly which one Kevin Harvey made. I know exactly which one Mike Quisenberry made. I know exactly which one Lin Ray made. And that's the kind of goal we as knife makers, or I as a knife maker, am aiming for, so that when I put my knives amongst others, somebody can immediately look at my knife and say, wow, that's a Stuart Smith knife. All right. What's your favorite Damascus pattern? I'm a huge fan of the W's pattern because it's incredibly diverse. It requires simple construction methods with great big optical poptitude results. You get crazy thin W's, you get big fat chunky W's, you get nice hooky barbed wire W's. You can twist W's and it turns them into stars and explosions. It's a great variety of results that you can get from the W's pattern. So yes, I would say W's is definitely my favorite pattern, because also from W's you can build onto other things like stars and mosaic and feather. W's feather is beautiful, amazing to look at. So yes, W's is definitely my favorite pattern. This is question 6. Talk about the state of knife making in South Africa. What is the community like? Is it growing? What are some of the emerging trends? Knife making in South Africa is definitely a booming craft. The problem is, while the number of knife makers are increasing, the number of knife buyers have to be split amongst the increasing knife makers. But having said that, there are the loyalists, there are those who like to buy from specific makers. And with the rise of popularity of forged knives, there is definitely a trend there where more and more knife makers are interested in forging, are making the effort to purchase forging equipment, anvils and forges and tongs. The old school ways, the old school ways of just grinding your knives definitely not coming to an end, but are being overshadowed now by the rising popularity of forged knives. The South African Knife Makers Guild is the current authority on knife making in South Africa. It is the pinnacle of knife quality in South Africa. If you want to be recognized as a quality knife maker, you want to join the Knife Makers Guild of South Africa. It's not essential, you don't have to, there's nothing that says you do, but I recommend it. There are a large number of knife clubs in South Africa that you can join if you're a novice and you want to learn the skill of knife making and bladesmithing. You can go to these clubs and you can learn the skills that you need. There's a number of guys offering courses now on bladesmithing and stock removal. So yeah, that is the current state of bladesmithing and knife making in South Africa. Will bladesmithing become a lost art? I would say no. Bladesmithing is not going to become a lost art, not anytime in the near future. But it's going to take the dedication of a few individuals or groups of individuals to ensure that the craft is maintained and the heritage is not lost. Places like the American Bladesmith Society and the Southern African Bladesmith Association are ensuring that these crafts aren't going to be lost. So I think for the near future, bladesmithing is in safe hands and we can look forward to more quality bladesmiths coming from all the world's organizations. Okay, so the last question was, where can people find your knives? And that's a really short answer. You can find me on my social media platforms, Instagram at Smith Hand Forged Knives. Follow me on Facebook on my fan page, also Smith Hand Forged Knives. And if you want to see, what are they called? Videos, those things that move on the screen. If you want to see instructional videos, go to my YouTube channel, Smith Hand Forged Knives. And you can make something beautiful. I need to stop flapping that around. I must stop looking over there. I'm sorry. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, Mr. Turkish. Platforms. Smith. Or the forging process. There's something, I keep looking over there. Fuck hell, man, why is that? Focus, I need a shiny laser pointer on the camera. It's just like a cat so I can watch it.